Now, when we talk about when we started designing page object, we have seen a similar approach of declaring the driver reference and doing driver.get over here. Then we have actually created a base class, right? If you remember, we have created a page class over here, which will be like a base class for all our pages, right? Something like this. We have defined in the case of when we were using page object model. We were defining all the driver reference and loading all the properties and initializing everything in one single file. So same approach we're gonna follow it with our page factories as well, as in we'll be creating a page class for page factory as well, where we will be initializing everything inside a base package, and all our pages will actually gonna take the driver reference, the common driver reference from the page class itself. So how are we gonna do that? Let's say I create a new page class, right? Just follow the steps that I'm doing right now, because I'll be making so many changes to what we have done inside the basic page object approach and what we are defining using page factories, right? So things will be a little bit change in the way that we were working with basic page object model, and now that we are using page factories, right? So first of all, what we need to do is we need to initialize whatever that we will be using. That is our web driver reference. We need to initialize over here. Then something related to Excel reading, right? Will not be initializing properties. Why we will not initialize? Because the locators, when you are working in page factories, let's say the locator, I have actually kept it over here. If you try to read this locator from a property file, you may not able to do it, right? Because let's say if I declare an object of properties or equal to new properties over here, right? And somehow if I do or dot get property, let's say the locator is username, this actually returns you a string, and over here you can see that must be a constant expression. So this expression should be a static, a constant expression. This actually returns you a simple string, so this will not be accepted. Either you need to create another Java file, or store it something like, if I create a file over here and name this class as locators, and I'm gonna give this locator over here, let's say public static string username equal to, and I'll give the XPath of that username. And if you want to read this XPath or the let's say CSS, then you need to do it something like in your base page class, you will be saying locators dot username like this. See, it is still not accepting it because this has to be a constant expression, so we need to make it as uh, we need to add a final keyword over here, something like this. Now this will gonna accept it. You can see the errors are gone, right? So this is the only reason properties we cannot use it, because we need to declare all variables as static and final in order to use them, right? But I'll not be using this approach as well. I'll be using something else. I'll let you know how we're gonna work with it. So let us just delete it for the time being, and let us give the locator, let me hard code it for the timing, and later on I'm going to show you how you're going to use it like this, right? Then let's again go back to our page class. So we'll not be declaring properties, right? After Excel, we need to initiate logs. We need all the weight, implicit, explicit weight. We need the extend reports, right? All these things would be needing the same thing that we have done for page object model. We would be needing the same stuff over here as well. So we can take a couple of things from instead of rewriting the entire code, we can take all these things directly from here and paste it to this class. So we can remove this input stream and properties, and then all these things will remain as it is, right? Let's see what else we have. And then we have created a constructor. Now here, uh, what happens if you have looked over here, we have created an object like this. So we are not directly creating an object of a homepage class, right? So there are a couple of things you can do. If in case you remember, over here we have created a constructor for page class, and whenever an object of a base page, like any page object is created, this constructor is called of the base class, and all the things gets initialized. We can do the same stuff over here as well, but at times there are some organization which where they don't create a constructor, where they don't keep things inside constructor. Instead of creating a constructor, we can create some methods like public static void init configuration. So we can initialize all the configuration inside this method. So configuration will be related to where we can check what all browsers are there. We can define our browsers, then we can navigate to a particular URL, right? All these things we can define it over here. And similarly, we can create a method for quitting the browser as well, right? We'll be creating this time we're not going to create a test like, let's say the first test ran, then it navigates to the second page and it continues on to the second test, then third test. We will be creating all our test cases independently in this framework, right? Because 75% of the organization, they create their frameworks in such a way that the test cases are not dependent on each other, right? This will help you while you are actually doing parallel execution using grid as well. Because in case of grid, the test cases should be independent. Every test should run on its own, right? So same approach will be following in page factories as well. We will be creating independent test cases, right? So let's see what we need to do is we need to say first we need to initialize our browsers, right? So for browsers, what I can do instead of, since we are not following any properties concept over here, I can rather create a class called as constants. So here we'll be keeping all our constants, right? If you want, you can store your locators over here as well, right? On one single page. So constants, as in, I can go inside this class and I can say public static final string browser equal to Chrome, right? I can directly read these values from this file. Final string test site URL equal to, let's say, http expedia.co.in, right? So these are, let's say, our configuration, right? Like we do in config properties. Same way, if you want to store your locators, you can store your locators as well over here in this one single file instead of creating two different properties files, right? So I can go to my page class. I'll just close this. Go to my page classes and say if constants dot browser dot equals Firefox, then it should go with driver equal to new Firefox driver like this, right? And let's just import it as well. Same way we'll keep on adding logs, log.debug, launching Firefox, right? Then we'll be doing else if it is equals to Chrome. Maybe these properties we can take it from the existing where we have defined all the pages and like this. So first Firefox, then for Chrome we'll get it from here, Chrome options, right? This is for Chrome, right? Where this path will be resources and then executables. I should launch Chrome and then log.debug launching Chrome, and same goes for IE. So else if this is equals to IE, so IE.driver and then IE.driver server.exe, and this we can say driver equal to new Internet Explorer driver, like this, and we're gonna write over here launching IE. So once the browser is decided, we can say driver.get, and we're going to navigate to constants.test site URL, and we'll say driver.manage.window.maximize and driver.manage.timeouts.implicit wait. This as well I can take it from constants dot I can say implicit wait, and there should be time unit and seconds. So there's implicit wait, we need to define a variable, create field type in over here, and this should be equal to, this is a long argument, equal to 10. I can write it like this, right, and save it, right? And same way explicit wait equal to new web driver wait. But hold on, one thing that is changed in your page factory is basically the implementation of wait, right? So this thing will not actually going to come like this. Here the weights are defined with the help of something called as new Ajax element locator factory, right? This is another class which actually provides the same timeout exception if any page factory element is not found, right? So for the time being, I'll just gonna comment out the waiting part, right? The synchronization part, and we're gonna see how we're gonna define it once we start building our test cases, right? So this much we have done so far, that we have initialized a base class. Now let's say if I go to my home page class. Now the other thing I can also do is, let's say when I talk about the locators of home page, what I'll do, I'll not going to keep the locators as well over here. So I'll actually going to create another class over here in my locators package, and this class I'm going to name it as home page locators, right? And I'll be deleting my locators from here, and I'll paste these locators over here like this, and I'm going to show you how this thing will actually going to work. So what happened, whenever an object of home page that is actually created we're going to create a constructor of home page over here. Constructor of home page. And this home page, what it will going to do, will say public home page locators home like this. And we'll say we'll import this home page locator class. We'll say this dot home. This is your global home variable equal to new home page locator. Just be with me for some time. You should be able to understand what I'm doing at the moment. And inside this, I'm gonna say page factory dot init elements, page factory dot init elements, and take the reference of driver. Driver, we're gonna get it from the page class, right? Because we have defined the driver over there inside the page itself. Right inside the page we have defined the driver. So this is the one, that's the page class, right? So same driver reference we can get it over here in our home page, and this should be this dot home, right? So we need to initialize the page factory elements, and page factory elements are defined over here. So this is how, by giving the driver reference, and this dot home will actually going to initialize the page factory elements of home page locators. And then what I can do, instead of flight tab dot click, what we need to do is we need to give home dot flight tab dot click like this. This is like we have created another wrapper over our locators, right? So what is the benefit of doing this? We will be keeping our locators in a separate file like this. So it's just like we are creating wrappers over the wrappers. That's it. If you want this thing as well, instead of writing it over here, you can get it from constants file. Or we have already created a separate locator file, so we will be keeping all our locators over here. When you create an object of home page, you should be able to access this flight tab element. That is what we have done. We have created an object of home page and we are able to access the flight tab element like this, home.flight tab. This returns your web element, and then through that web element we are clicking on this element. Now our task will become more easy. As in, now if you go to your flight search test, so this thing is already done, right? Instead of doing this, you can simply say home page home equal to new home page like this, and then you can simply say home dot go to flight. So what happened? Even you need not to do this thing over here. So first you will be calling a method that is this method you will be calling that you have defined in the page class, that is init configuration. So when you call this method, you go to your test, call this method init configuration, and this is like page.init configuration. It's a static method, and import this page class. So your web driver will be initialized. It will create an object of home page. As soon as an object of home page is created, this will initialize the page factory elements of home page locator. That gets initialized, and your test go to flight will gonna get the locators from that home page locator itself. So now if I run this, there's some issue. Let's see. File not found. That's fine. Which file it is not able to locate? Okay, in the Excel this time I've not given this com.w2a, so I can remove this. Directly under resources we have Excel file, so directly under resources we have the Excel file, right? So let's go to a test again and let's run this again. Some issue, null pointer exception at init configuration. Let's see at which line. So it says that the driver is not initialized. Okay, this is because, let's see in our constants, we have given the browser as Chrome. So if the browser is Chrome, okay, it's in capital. So I can ignore the case as well. That's fine. So let's try it again. So it's launching Chrome. The logs are not yet initialized. We need to define the log4j properties. So let's see, we'll do that later on. First, let's see how our test it works. See, it has gone 2 flights. The very first test it executed successfully, right? And after this, I can say page dot quit browser. So at every test, you need to give this thing. In the before test, it should initialize everything, and at the end of the test, it should quit everything. This thing will make your test independent. So before every test, a browser should launch, and after executing the entire test, the browser should quit. Goes to flight, and it should quit the browser. Let's see, the browser is not quit yet. Unable to perform report configuration. The file this src extend configuration was not found. Okay, again, there's an issue with terminated, but there was some issue with the file that we were using for report config. In the extent manager class, we must have given the path with w2a. Yeah, this we need to remove. So it should be src test resources and this file. Yeah, that's fine. So let's go to our test again and let's try running it once again. And let's see, it's okay. Still, it is giving some issues with the location. Oh, okay. I may have changed the location in the different project. Just give me a moment. This is what happens when you copy paste the code. So we need to do it over here. Let's run it again. Again, the driver didn't quit and the program terminated. Let's see, we have anything. We don't have anything in driver.quit. Right. So let's give it one more execution. So yes, it works fine. So independently, this test that we have created is working fine, right? And whatever base architecture that we have set up so far, everything is working fine as per the configuration that we have done, right? Now we'll be adding more actions, as in more business pages over here. We'll be defining more locator pages, right? And then we're gonna see how these things will gonna interact with each other, how the listeners, the reporting listeners, will gonna work with page factories, right? Because you remember when we were doing driver dot find element, buy dot xpath dot click, we have created some keywords like click, like type. And here, if you remember, we are directly doing click over here. Will directly doing send keys, right? So how those things will be managed in page factories, right? So that is what we're going to look in our next lecture.